You know how you get a text alert from the delivery driver before your food arrives, so your hungry kids stop freaking out? Vonage does that.
Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to PyCon Malaysia 2021. I'm Ashraf Gipilin, your moderator for today, for this session. At this session, we have Mr. Cory Althoff. Hello, Mr. Cory.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, nice to see you today. I'm excited to know that you're going to make a talk with us today. For your information, the audience, okay, Mr. Cory is an author, programmer, and a speaker. He's best known for his book, the title of the book, The Self-Taught Programmer, which has been published in 7 languages and introduced the term of self-taught programmer in the common section. As you can see, the title of the talk is How to Build a Brand as a Python Programmer. So without wasting our time, Mr. Cory, the stage is yours.
Thanks so much. Thanks everyone so much for being here with me today. I'm super excited to give this talk. And can you go ahead and add my slide to the presentation? Ashraf, can you add my slide so that everyone can see that? Perfect. Oh, it just went away. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so welcome to my talk, How to Build Your Brand as a Programmer. Super excited, like I said, to be here with all of you. And huge thanks to PyCon Malaysia for hosting me. So today we're going to be talking about how to build your brand. And what you're going to learn is why you should build your brand as a programmer and how to build your brand as a programmer. But first, let me tell you my story. So in college, I tried to learn to program, but actually failed. I took a class and I dropped it after like 2 weeks, unfortunately, and I actually gave up. Then when I graduated from college with a major in political science, I struggled to get a job. I felt like I didn't have the skills that employers were looking for, and I wasn't getting interviews. So unable to find a job, I decided to try to learn to program. I was in Silicon Valley, so I thought, why not give it a try? So I bought all the books and courses. On the right is Think Python. That is the first Python book that I ever bought. I still recommend it. It's a great book, and you should definitely check it out if you're interested in learning more about Python. 6 months later, I got my first interview at a startup called Eat Club. My friend helped me get the interview. I was so excited. I couldn't wait to finally be a software engineer. So when the day came, I did a technical interview, and unfortunately, I completely bombed it. And it was super embarrassing. And my friend was like, I thought you knew how to program, but I just wasn't quite ready yet. Eventually, though, I did end up getting a job as a software engineer at eBay, which was an amazing experience, a super awesome team. And it was pretty crazy going from a complete beginner to working at eBay. It was an amazing journey. So after working at several companies in Silicon Valley, I decided to write a book about my experience. And so I named it The Self-Taught Programmer, the definitive guide to programming professionally. And to my disbelief, it has now sold more than 150,000 copies worldwide. And my Udemy course of the same name has 160,000 students. I definitely never thought it would reach so many people. And I self-published it, which is something I will be talking about later. 4 years ago, I also created a Facebook group called Self-Taught Programmers. And so I call this the self-taught community, and it's a community for programmers or aspiring programmers that don't have a computer science degree and are learning how to code outside of a traditional 4-year degree. So people going to programming boot camps or people learning completely on their own is how I define self-taught. Today we have over 60,000 members, which has been incredible to see. I want to share a couple of success stories with you because this is what it's all about for me. This is why I have worked to create a brand as a programmer and publish books and done all this stuff, is to see the success stories. So we have one from Victor, and he went from having no direction a year ago to working as an intern at a major tech company using Python. And Dragon, who, as you can see, recently got a job full-time as a programmer. And those are both without degrees. So it's super cool and inspiring seeing these success stories. And the success of my book and Facebook group led to a publishing deal with Wiley for my second book, which is called The Self-Taught Computer Scientist. And that is actually coming out in a month. So I cannot wait for that. Super excited for that to come out. I think October 19th is the release date. So it's already up on Amazon and everything, but only for pre-order. And I can't wait. So I've also been featured in a few outlets like Forbes and The Next Web. And my book is available in 7 languages. And I even got the chance to give the opening keynote speech at PyCon JP, which was an awesome experience. And I've also been to Malaysia, but I have not been to PyCon MY. And I would love to come in person. So maybe if this talk goes well, I'll be able to come back in the future because I would absolutely love to visit Malaysia again. I had so much fun there and that would be really cool. So we'll see, fingers crossed. All of this helped me to land my dream job as a developer advocate at Vonage. So if you're not familiar with the position developer advocate, essentially it's a mix between marketing and business and programming. And it's really cool because I'm on the community team and I get to spread awareness about our APIs and just in general do education for programmers and build community among programmers, which is what I'm really passionate about. So it's really cool that building a brand has allowed me to find a job that I really enjoy doing. If you're not familiar with Vonage, by the way, Vonage is an award-winning cloud communications provider that has a suite of APIs to help developers like you easily do things like send text messages, make phone calls, stream video, and a bunch of other things as well. So why does this matter? Well, most programmers don't bother to build a brand. And building one will give you an advantage in the job market. For example, you will stand out in interviews, and some people in the audience might also be considering being a developer advocate, which I definitely recommend if you can program and you've maybe been a software engineer or it's your first job. It's a really great job and it's cool. So you could use this as well to launch your career as a developer advocate. But even if you don't want to do that, if you just want to remain a software engineer, that's fine. It definitely helps you stand out in interviews, which is awesome. And it can help you get promoted and lead to cool opportunities like publishing a book or being a guest on a podcast. And building a brand as a programmer will also help you network and meet new people. And it's also just really fun. So how do you build a brand as a coder? Well, that's what we're going to learn right now. So this is a book that I definitely recommend called Traction, and it helped me build my brand. So in the book, the author lists all these different traction channels that you can use to promote yourself or a product, viral marketing, public relations, unconventional PR, search engine marketing, offline ads, trade shows, existing platforms. I won't go through all this, but there's a lot of different ways that you can build a brand. But the important thing is that you should do whatever you enjoy and plays to your strengths. And I also think that there are a few specific options for software engineers that work best. So the ones I'm going to be talking about in this presentation are public speaking, social media, starting a community, writing a book, creating an online course. And I'm also going to highlight in each section a programmer that's doing this really well. So first up, public speaking. So I want to highlight Tanya Sims, who is on my team at Vonage, and she's actually speaking, I think, after me at PyCon Malaysia. So make sure that you tune into her talk. And she's been doing a bunch of speeches and is super talented. And I definitely admire her work as a speaker and someone who's building a really cool brand by giving speeches. So what's the best first step to get involved? Well, I think that you should try to speak at PyCon. So there are PyCons all over the world. It's a great chance to travel and meet people in the Python community. When I went to Japan, that was really fun. I've also been to Python Portland, which was awesome. And you get to share your expertise with a really awesome community. So I definitely recommend trying to speak at PyCon. You can also look at other conferences that are a good fit for a talk that you might have in mind. So these are the steps that it takes to talk at a conference. It's actually not very complicated. First, you look for a conference, then you wait for them to open what's called a call for papers. And one tip I have for you is to subscribe to their newsletter, because then you'll get an email as soon as they open up their application for papers. And essentially that is just an overview of your speech, and they go through all of them and they pick the ones that they feel like are the best. So you then craft your talk, submit it, and I'm going to go over really quickly what's in a call to paper. So the most important things are the name of your talk, your elevator pitch, the description of your talk, and then they usually ask, why you? So here's a tip to write eye-catching speech names. Try writing 20 speech names before you pick one. And this also works for blog posts. So it's really tempting to just come up with one speech name and then go with that one. But if you force yourself to write 20 different speech names, then you might be surprised at like the 15th thing that you come up with that might actually be the best. So try that, and hopefully that will help you write a better speech name. You also want to nail your elevator pitch. So make the reader excited. That's your primary goal. The elevator pitch is basically just the 30-second version of your speech that's supposed to get the people reviewing your application excited and the audience excited when they see that as well. So my big tip for that is to use Grammarly. If you're not familiar with that, it's a piece of software that helps you with your writing. It edits all your grammar, but it also tells you how engaging your elevator pitch is. So this is my elevator pitch. And on the right, you can see that it says engagement, very engaging. So Grammarly will actually tell you how engaging your elevator pitch is. So that's my top tip for writing a really good elevator pitch. You also want to write a solid description. So this is a little bit longer, and you want to just make sure you cover everything that the listeners are going to learn when they hear your talk. And then the last part of your call to papers is why you. So why are you the right person to give this talk? So you want to use social proof as much as you can. So maybe you have a ton of followers on Twitter and you can say, I have 10,000 Twitter followers. You just want to let the organizers know that you will help them fill seats and that people will get value from your talk, and just really ensure the organizers that you know what you're talking about, that you're an expert in this particular subject matter. Okay, so the next way to build a brand as a programmer is social media. Someone who does this, who I really admire well, is Dan Abramov, and he created Redux, the JavaScript library, and he has 300,000 followers on Twitter, and I definitely admire the way he has been able to create a really exciting brand using social media. And so when you're picking what platform to use, think about what you're good at. So if you're really good at writing, then maybe it makes sense to use Twitter or Facebook. If you're good at design and you're really good at presenting things visually, you might want to try Instagram. And if you are good on camera, maybe you should try TikTok or YouTube. But stick with one platform until you build a following. Don't just try to use all the social media platforms at once and not put enough effort into all of them. And therefore, you probably won't get the results that you want. So stick with one at first. And then this is some really good advice from Gary Vee. You want to try to jab, 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 hook. So basically you want to give, and then ask. So what can you give? Advice, articles. You can answer specific questions that people have, make people laugh with memes. You can give an ebook away. I've had a lot of success by giving my book completely away for free when I first released it. Give anything away your audience will find valuable before you ask. So for example, some people in the audience might not be interested in ever asking for something. You might be creating a brand just for fun. But if you are doing it, say to promote your book, then you don't want to just go on Twitter and be like, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. You want to give a ton of value. And then once you've provided that value, then you can ask for something. You also want to make sure that your hooks on social media are similar to your jabs. So don't just say, buy this, use a good image, tell a story. We're hardwired to respond to stories as humans. So here is an ad for my book that I did in my Facebook group. And I told a story. I talked about how I went from a complete beginner to a software engineer. And then I have a big image that gets people excited. And these are just how my normal posts look. Like I didn't just say, buy my book, $9.99, buy now. So jab, 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 hook, and make your hooks really solid. You also want to use hashtags when you're trying to build a brand on social media as a coder. That will help people find your content. Of course, you want to create good content. That's super, super important. And then the secret to growing on social media as a coder is that new platforms are significantly easier to grow on. So you can use older platforms and that's fine. But if you're thinking, I want to start a podcast, you might want to try Clubhouse instead of Apple's native podcast platform, because that's been around for a really long time. And in general, it's always easier to grow on new platforms. You can also speak at conferences. So for example, you could go to a conference and then you could let everyone know what your handle is. So for example, my handle is at Cory Althoff. So now would be a good time to follow me on Twitter, and you can try this strategy as well when you present at your next conference. So next up is create a community. So Saran is someone who inspires me in this area, and she is the founder of Code Newbies. And that is a Twitter channel, and it's also a Facebook group and a website and a conference, and it's all dedicated to new coders. So I think Code Newbies actually recently got acquired. So that's really cool to see that you can create a community of coders and then have it acquired like a startup. I think Dev2 actually acquired them. So she is definitely someone who inspires me. And the first thing you want to do when you create a community is to find your niche. Do people feel passionate about your topic? With self-taught programmers, that really worked because people feel passionately about learning how to code outside of school. They feel like CS degrees take 4 years and they're really expensive and there's a lot of problems with college. So they feel passionately about that. So make sure to find a subject that people are really going to feel passionate about. And you're also going to want to create content yourself. So right now, I'm just going to talk about Facebook groups, but this could apply if you want to start your own Reddit group, say, or any other type of group. But I have the most experience with Facebook groups, so that's what I'm going to talk about in this section. But feel free to apply this to any other type of group. And you could do anything as long as people feel passionate about it. If you want to start a blockchain or some technology within blockchain that I don't even know about, that would be really cool. So I hope I inspire someone here today to start their own group, because that'd be really, really cool. And at the beginning, you're going to be the only one creating content. So you have to make sure that you're creating really amazing content, of course. Otherwise, people aren't going to want to join your group. And so let me give you a couple tips on how to create engaging Facebook content. You want to use Facebook's built-in features like polls and posts with colorful backgrounds. This is a post that I did recently. And as you can see, there's a really colorful background and the text is really big. And you can also do polls on Facebook, which tend to have really high engagement. And memes. Programmers love memes. So all this stuff is going to attract other coders into your group. And then you'll have other people to interact with and create content and share stuff with. People post in the self-taught programmers group like 10, 20, 30 times a day. It's really cool. It's an awesome community and it's a great way to make friends. So if what you're interested in doesn't have a group, definitely consider making one. Other high-performing content when you're creating a group like this, questions, starting a conversation, starting a debate. For example, what the best programming language is in my group always does really, really well and gets people excited, sharing interesting images, and of course, stories. So content that does not perform well on Facebook, anything that moves the user off Facebook. So avoid links when possible when you're trying to start your own Facebook group. So a couple of tricks to growing your Facebook group: make your group public instead of private. And that helps your group grow because non-members can see your group's posts. And you can also try doing some paid promotion, like running ads and doing giveaways. Finally, you want to create a happy community. So find moderators. You can post in your community asking for help. And if no one wants to help, maybe it's a sign that people don't feel passionate about the subject you chose. So maybe refine the subject in a way that gets people excited. Also, create post guidelines and ask members to review them when they sign up. And make sure that you're approving every post, either yourself or have a moderator do it. Next up is blogging. So blogging is a great way to build a brand as a programmer because companies and people can find you using Google. And Lawrence Bradford is someone who has definitely inspired me in this area. She created the blog Learn to Code with Me, and it gets a ton of traffic, and she's done a great job building a brand that way. So SEO is search engine optimization, and that is essentially the process of getting Google to actually find you. So make it so people can find you on Google rather. So growing your blog is all about keywords. For example, I just wrote an article and the keyword I was targeting is web scraping. So basically when people type a search query into Google, you want them to find you, and that search query is a keyword. So you can try using a tool like SEMrush or Ubersuggest in order to research keywords for your blog. So this is what it looks like if you go to SEMrush and type in Learn Python. You can see 33,000 people a month type Learn Python into different search engines, and that is under volume. And then that's in the US, and then global volume is 125,000. But unfortunately, keyword difficulty is 94%. So that means it's really, really hard for an article you write to rank for this particular keyword. So you might want to try to find a keyword that's easier to rank for. So maybe 50% or something like that. But in the end, with blogging, the best article wins. So you want to try to create long form content. So 2,000, 3,000 words is usually best. You don't want to just write just for the sake of writing, but you really want to go in depth. So if you write an article about web scraping, like I just did, mine was 10 pages because I wanted to do my best to answer all the questions someone typing in web scraping might have. And time on page matters. So Google's looking at like how long the person actually stays on the page. Did you answer their question? So if they go to your article and immediately leave your article, that is indicative that you did not answer their query, and therefore Google's going to rank you lower. Another tip is to use videos to try to increase your time on the page that the user spends on the page so that you rank higher in Google. So Google also takes traffic into consideration. So think about starting a programming newsletter that goes with your blog where you talk about different things, including the articles that you write. And you can also use social media to push traffic to your blog as well, and try browser notifications. So essentially, if you Google, there's a bunch of different tools to use this, but browser notifications, you can easily add a little piece of code to your blog that gives a notification push directly to your browser whenever you create a blog post. So that's something to look into as well. The most important thing, however, is links. So Google takes into consideration how many different websites link to your blog post. So how do you build links? You can submit your content to Reddit, to Hacker News. Make sure not to spam though. Post about other things as well. Let other blog owners know about your articles. So you can email them and tell them, hey, I think you might be interested in this, and maybe they will link to it. And when you mention a person or a company in an article, let them know. And that goes for other things too. So I'm mentioning a bunch of different programmers in this presentation, and I'm definitely going to let them know that I mentioned them. And that's just a good strategy in general. So next up is writing a book. So Brett Slatkin is someone who inspires me on this front. And he wrote a book called Effective Python. I actually met him at PyCon one time, and he's created a really, really good brand by writing books, and that's definitely inspired me. He is a principal software engineer at Google, so that's definitely helped his career. So should you write a book? Well, Tim Ferriss always says, if you're going to write a book with a word I will not say before that. But the point is that you need to write a really good book if you're going to write a book. Like, you can't just take the matter lightly. Don't spend 15 days or a month or 2 months writing a book and then release something that's not really, really good. It's probably going to take you a year to write a good technical book. Both of my books have taken over a year. I've talked to other authors who have said the same thing. So beware before you decide to write a book that it is not easy and it is a huge time commitment, but it can be incredibly rewarding. I've gotten so many success stories from my book that it has made it all worth it. And it can lead to really cool opportunities like going to Japan and traveling and helping you with your career and stuff like that. So it's been really helpful for my career, but it is a huge commitment. So how do you publish a technical book? Well, there's traditional publishing and self-publishing. As I said earlier, I self-published my first book. But the traditional route involves writing a manuscript. So essentially you write a manuscript for your technical book, and then you submit it to a bunch of traditional publishers, and then they either pass or publish it. And you get an advance and royalties that usually are something like 8 to 10%, and then 25% to 50% for ebooks. If you do self-publishing, then you make your book for sale via websites like Amazon, really primarily Amazon, because I think like 80% of self-published sales come from Amazon. Amazon offers print on demand, which is really cool. So you can make your paperback available, and then when someone orders it, they automatically ship it, and they handle everything for you, including printing the book, shipping it, all that stuff. Amazon also offers wholesale distribution. So actually, big companies like Barnes and Noble can actually buy your book from you wholesale and then put it in their bookstore, which is pretty cool. So you can bypass the gatekeepers by publishing your book yourself, getting a lot of traction for it, building a brand as a coder, and then hopefully publishers will come to you. So that's what happened to me. I self-published my first book, and then it did well. I built a brand for myself, and then for my second book, I had publishers actually reach out to me. So one tip for selling your book is that on Amazon, reviews determine sales. Is super important. So you want to try to get as many reviews as you can. And I will talk about a strategy for that in a little bit. You can also use SEO on Amazon, which is something that not everyone realizes. Amazon is a search engine, and people type things in. And so you can use keywords and optimize for keywords to help sell your book. Okay, so the last thing that I'm going to talk about before we jump into the Q&A is creating an online course. So I think that everyone should have an online course. So Al Stewart, or Stugard, I don't know how to say his name, but he has 1 million students, and he wrote the book Automate the Boring Stuff, which I love. It's a great book. And he has a Udemy course, which, as you can see, he has, I think, several Udemy courses, but he has over 1 million students. So he's done a really great job at creating a brand by making courses. And creating a course is much easier than writing a book. So if you're on the fence about writing a book, but you don't want to commit a year of your life to writing it, or you're worried, maybe try creating a course first, I think would be good advice. And I feel like everyone here has something that they could teach. So maybe you mentor junior developers a lot, and you could create a junior developer to senior developer course or something like that. I feel like everyone has something that they can teach, and it's really rewarding to help other people learn. So think about what you're an expert in, and then you can use Udemy's tool to find courses. So for example, this is Udemy's tool. You can sign up for free. If you go to the instructor tab, then you'll see something like this. And at the top, it says Python. I typed that in, and then it shows me the student demand, how many courses are on Udemy, and the top monthly revenue. So for Python, the top monthly revenue for Python courses on Udemy is $118,000, which is mind-blowing. Really, really, really crazy, but very high demand. So you can check out different ideas and see maybe how much you might be able to make by typing in different subjects into this tool. So it's super helpful. And when it comes time to actually creating your course, you can film using your laptop camera and a mic. You can consider hiring an editor, which is really helpful to cut your mistakes and add graphics. And you should also create exercises to go along with each lesson. And then I really quickly want to talk about publishing on a platform versus selling your course yourself. So I've done both, and I definitely recommend, well, it depends on the situation. For me, Udemy has been easier. I made more money by selling on my own website. However, it took way more work. For instance, you have to worry about responding to customer complaints, dealing with the refunds, all of that stuff. And so Udemy is a lot easier, but you can potentially earn less money because when you sell your course yourself, you might charge $50 or even $500. On Udemy, most courses sell for like $12. And also think about if you have an audience or not. So Udemy has a built-in audience, which is helpful. Once you get those reviews, you can automatically make sales using their audience, but you don't make as much money for each sale. So something to think about for sure. And make sure that your students have a place to ask questions. So consider creating a Facebook group for your course. I did that with self-taught programmers, and I direct everyone in the course to that Facebook group if they're having problems. Also consider creating a hashtag for your course. So I created a hashtag self-taught coders on Twitter, and then I let everyone in the course know to use that so they can all communicate. And that's been pretty cool. So my advice for marketing your book or course is super simple. Give it away for free. It sounds really simple, but it's really effective. These platforms are all about reviews. So give it away for free to as many people as you possibly can so you can get as many reviews as you can. And then people will say, oh, wow, that must be good. It has a lot of reviews. It adds social proof. And you can use coupon sites. So if you type in Udemy coupon sites, there's a bunch of different sites that you can find, and you can send them your free Udemy coupon, and then they will promote your Udemy course for you to their audience, which is super helpful. So wrapping up, here are a few books that I recommend. Jab, 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 Right Hook, which I recommended earlier. Influence is one of the best marketing books I've ever read, and it will definitely help you on your journey to creating a brand as a coder. And if you're interested in writing a technical book, check out Your First 1,000 Copies. Very helpful for writing your first book. I want to talk very briefly about how we are building community at Vonage. So we have the Vonage Startup Program, which is an incubator that helps startups, and basically we give them, I don't know if incubator is the right word, but it's a program that basically provides our APIs for free to different startups, mentorship, and all kinds of support. So if you want to check that out, go to developer.vonage.com/startups. But that's an example of community, literally like starting a community. Then social media, we do Twitter. So if you check out @VonageDevs, we're super active on there. And then the Vonage blog, which I've been writing a lot on. If you type in Cory Althoff Vonage into Google, I should come up and you can see all the articles I've written. And I'm trying to write one article per week right now. So that's learn.vonage.com. You can check that out. Thank you all so much for coming to my talk. I hope that this helped you learn how to build a brand as a programmer. If you have any questions about building a brand as a programmer or anything related to this, please connect with me on Twitter @Cory Althoff. I respond to all my messages, and I am willing to help with anything, any question that you have. Just let me know, and I will do my absolute best to help you. So thank you all for coming to this talk, and I hope this helped you. So I will now turn this over to the Q&A and see if anyone has any questions. But thank you so much for having me. This was great, and thank you again. So let me see if there's any questions. No questions yet. So if anyone has any questions, I will be around for a little bit longer, and let me know. I am happy to answer any questions that you have. Otherwise, hit me up on Twitter and ask your questions then. And again, happy to help. So thank you so much, Ralph. Really appreciate it. Okay, let's see. Ivy said, if there is any methods so that I tried that don't work well. Yeah, definitely. I've definitely tried a bunch of stuff that didn't work. Let me try to think. I would say that releasing my course on my own website was probably my biggest mistake, just because it worked okay, but it took up so much of my time. So when I switched to Udemy, that was huge for me, just because it freed up a huge amount of my time, which was really nice and convenient. And then, of course, social media. Like, I've definitely tried a bunch of stuff on social media that hasn't worked, tried platforms where I was unable to get any followers. So definitely there. So yeah, those are the top things that come to mind. Let's see. What was your biggest challenge as a self-taught programmer? That's a good question. I think for me, my biggest challenge was not knowing what I didn't know. And that's one of the reasons that I wrote my book. The thing that's different about my book was it went into a lot of things other books that are intro to programming books traditionally don't talk about. So most programming books at the time just taught you how to, say, program in Python. But when I got my job at eBay, there was so much stuff that I didn't know, like using version control and different programming paradigms and regular expressions, stuff like that, that I had no idea what I didn't know. And I didn't know I needed to even know that. And so that was my biggest challenge. And I think that's definitely something that's hard as a self-taught programmer. And so that's why I actually wrote that book. So it's hard because there's so much in programming to know. And so trying to figure out exactly what you should study is definitely a challenge. Any other way to connect with you rather than Twitter, email, LinkedIn? Yeah, Instagram. Definitely. You can send me a DM on Instagram. Same handle, at Cory Althoff. And of course, the Facebook group. So if you want to join self-taught programmers, then join the group and feel free to tag me and I will probably see it. And then learn.vonage.com is where you can find my articles that I will be writing. So, and if anyone has any other questions, let me know. I'm here for, well, it looks like I've run out of questions to answer. So if there's any last minute questions, happy to answer. Do you offer short courses on Python? So I have the self-taught programmer course. That's actually my only course. I might create another course for my new book, but I'm not sure if I'll have time. Hopefully I will. I would love to do that. So, okay, we got another question. What would you have told your younger self that could have sped up your professional self? Now, that's a really good question. I might have gone, I just wish I had more structure when I was learning to code. So I think that people today have a lot better access to resources. There's also free code camp, which is really good. There's a lot of stuff on Coursera that's free, which is great. I think if I could go back in time and just be like, okay, this is exactly what you need to study, I think that would have been super, super helpful. And yeah, I think I wouldn't have become a full stack developer because I feel like I spent so much time trying to learn the front end and the back end, and then I was just mediocre at both. And that was a huge problem for me. So I would tell myself, like, okay, you should probably just work only on learning front end development or only back end and not trying to learn both. because that really, really slowed me down. Good question. So great sharing. Generally for Asians, branding is something new or feel shy to put ourselves out there. What's your advice to take that first step? It's a good question. I think writing, because it'd be pretty hard if you're feeling shy to go and create a video of yourself or to talk at a conference. This is pretty hard. I was pretty nervous before this. And so I think that if you're shy, that's probably not a good route to go. But you can start blogging, right? And that's all from your computer. You don't really have to put yourself out there as much. Of course, you are sharing your content with the world, but you can run it through Grammarly, so you know that it has a 99 score and that is really good. You can have other people read it before you put it out there. So I think if you're feeling shy, start with blogging is definitely what I would recommend. Also, you don't have to deal with immediate likes or something like that. What I mean by that is, like, if you get on Twitter, that involves writing as well, but you might be like, oh man, I didn't get any retweets and no one liked my post, and that could be a problem if you're shy. So I think blogging is the best way to do that. It's a great question. As a self-taught programmer, are you able to spend time to learn algo and data structures when you face bottleneck as a self-taught programmer? So yeah, I mean, I was definitely, so my second book, The Self-Taught Computer Scientist, the subtitle is The Beginner's Guide to Data Structures and Algorithms. So that's what the entire book is about. So I just spent a year of my life only learning algorithms and data structures. And if I could go back, that's probably something I would tell myself as well, is to spend more time on data structures and algorithms. That's really the key to landing a job. You can't get a job as a programmer without that, because these days, almost every single job has a technical interview that's all about data structures and algorithms. So I recommend LeetCode for sure for that. I think that's the best resource that I've found to practice, at least. So also doing, what's it called? Competitive programming, super helpful to prepare for a technical interview. So think about that. Next question. Thank you, by the way, everyone, for all these amazing questions. I really appreciate it. Do you face imposter syndrome in your career? And if you do, how do you usually overcome it? Absolutely, I do. So badly. I mean, I wrote about that in my first book, actually. And my friend who has a master's degree in computer science from Stanford said he gets imposter syndrome. And I talked about that in the book. So I said, you know what? Everyone just has imposter syndrome. Even my friend who has a master's degree in computer science from Stanford has it. And so we're all just running around, thinking maybe perhaps we are imposters. If you're not familiar with imposter syndrome, it's basically feeling like, I'm not a real programmer, or feeling like you're not actually competent. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but that's, how I feel. But absolutely, yeah. I mean, especially writing a book on computer science, I had it big time, because I was just, who am I to write a book about computer science? I don't even have a degree in computer science, and here I am writing a book about it. So definitely, I don't know the solution to that. Is just probably to know that everyone has it, and so don't be so hard on yourself. Let's see. Just reading through the questions really quick. This is a great conversation going on, by the way. Really appreciate all the questions and all the cool comments. So, whoa. I think there's just a little tiny earthquake. Whoa. My apartment is shaking a bit. That was crazy. Okay. Working in Silicon Valley tech companies, how do you, just having a minor earthquake here, no big deal. Perils of living in California. Working in Silicon Valley tech companies, how do you solve coding challenges when you face a situation when you are unable to solve a problem or logic and with time pressure to deliver the work? I think that you ask for help. I mean, that's something that I struggled with a lot when I was learning code. And the solution is always for me just to ask for help or go on a walk. I think that is the most helpful thing. Like, go take a shower or go on a walk and just stop thinking about it. And that can be super helpful. And then ask for help, because you don't want to struggle for something, especially in a situation with time pressure, for 2 days. And you could have just asked for help and got it done in half an hour. So join it. That's why communities are really important. So whether it's a PyCon community or self-taught programmers or whatever it is, it's important to be part of a community where you can ask for help, or Stack Overflow. Any other questions? Not sure how much time we have, but again, I really appreciate all the amazing questions. Maybe one more. Probably have time for one more question. So if anyone wants to ask one final question, we can do that and then wrap up. What would your advice for students who want to venture to IT-related industries without a CS degree? That's a really good question and a good way to wrap it up. So that's something I think is underrated, is going into other careers using coding. For example, developer advocacy, I think, is a really cool career path, and people don't necessarily think about that. Like, oh, I'm going to learn how to code outside of school so that I can become a developer advocate. But it's a really great job. Or sales engineering. If you're passionate about sales and you also know how to code, then that could be a really good career path. There's a lot more careers that you can do aside from just being a software engineer if you learn how to code. So that would be my advice, is to think about that. And it looks like we're out of time. So thank you all so much. Thank you so much for all the amazing questions and comments and everything. I really, really appreciate it. So everyone have a fantastic rest of PyCon Malaysia. And thank you again. Have a great day, evening, everyone. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cory. I personally, I'm a beginner in software engineering. I'm currently a student in second year for software engineering in Sabah. So this talk actually gives me a lot of information to start my career after I graduate. So thank you,
Awesome.
Mr. Cory, again. Yeah.
So
thank you, Mr. Cory, again, and to the audience. It's great to see you, and yeah, we'll see you for the next talk. Okay,
Awesome.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay,
Enjoy the rest of
bye.
PyCon. Take care.